Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastyatyadeja Tarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Let's offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord who can fulfill the desires of everyone just like desire trees and are full of compassion for all the fallen conditioned souls. Davaicha Princeom Swai Smareni Bakloni Vasem Vaishnavam Prendam Gospoda Katori Mogat Ispolni Janani Akajdava Padobna Drevam Jalani Ipolni Sostradani Akavasem Pachim Abu Slovanam Dusham Kakmania. All right, so here we go, devotees. First of all, we have just a few questions, actually 5, from Instagram. I thought there'd be more, but anyway, no problem. Okay, so first question. Is giving ourselves to Krishna the final stage? After we've been able to fully devote ourselves to devotional service? Or is the concept of giving oneself possible at some medium level of the spiritual process? Okay, that's a nice question. That's a beautiful question, actually. You know, it is a question of degree. When one is in the final stage or topmost, as we read about the last few days, Uttama Adhikari stage, then fully given. But one of the basic principles of sadhana bhakti means the beginning stage of learning how to be a devotee. One of the first principles is that I belong to Krishna. I belong to Krishna. I don't belong to anyone else. I don't even belong to me. So I can't just do what I want. I belong to Krishna. And that's a very foundational idea which we should have or try to develop in our minds, which means giving. I belong. I belong to me. Now I gave myself to Krishna. I belong to him. Yeah, simple idea. But of course, as devotees advance, well, when devotees are new, they still have many attachments and desires, and sometimes they think, I could have done something else, whatever. So it means that even though sometimes they are thinking, I belong to Krishna, I have given myself to Krishna, but it is mixed with different ideas. So as a devotee progresses to the middle stage, Madhyamadikari, then it's much stronger that I belong to Krishna. And the most elevated devotees, most elevated Uttama Adhikaris, not only do they feel that I belong to Krishna, but they feel Krishna belongs to me. That's a very elevated state of consciousness. We'll talk about that some other time, just some other time. So, okay, second question. Should we try to see every devotee as a pure devotee who is on a higher spiritual level than us, I guess? Excuse me. Well, no. The thing is, we should respect all living entities. You know, Prabhupada said, we should even respect the ant. What to speak of a devotee? But as we read, some days before, we were encouraged or instructed to be able to see what levels different devotees are on. So pure devotee, well, I'm using the term in the more elevated sense, a very advanced devotee, but you definitely see them as devotees, as sincere people who are serving the Lord. But try to understand what level they're on and relate with them on that basis. In other words, those junior to you, try to help them. Those on an equal level, like they've been devotees as long as you, befriend them, serve together like a team. And those who are very advanced, Uttama, or even just more advanced than you, serve them and inquire from them. These are the classic ways of relating with the three different levels of devotees. Why do liberated souls sometimes get material bodies when they come to this world? Well, because that's, Krishna, when Krishna comes, he comes in his original body, fully spiritual. But when the devotees come, then they accept material bodies, which they then engage in Krishna's service. And through being engaged in Krishna's service, their otherwise material bodies become spiritualized. And therefore, on the advanced stage, the advanced devotee's body, even though it's sort of more or less constructed like our bodies, but we should accept that advanced devotee has a spiritual body. And this is why elevated devotees, when they pass away, their bodies are not burnt. Generally, everybody's body is burnt. Cremation. This is should be universal. But those who are very elevated, who, because of their Krishna consciousness, their bodies have been spiritualized, their bodies are buried whole and preserved because they're spiritual, through having been engaged in the Lord's devotional service. Yeah. Is it okay during chanting japa to the devotees Is it okay during chanting japa to offer my obeisances to the devotees who I criticize within my mind, but not to do something offensive? Can I ask Krishna when I chant japa to purify me from this criticism? Well, it is not okay to criticize devotees. It's definitely not okay. because it will be offense, and you will become affected by the offense. You'll get reactions. So definitely, please, on one hand, when you chant, try. You can, from time to time, pray to Krishna, please free me from my critical tendency. But when you see it happening, try to stop it. Tell your mind, stop that. Because we mentioned the other day, we're having questions on one of the previous verses. We are not our bodies, of course. That's the most basic lesson in Krishna consciousness. But we are not our minds, too. We're not our gross body of flesh and blood. We're not the mental body, the subtle body. So don't be too soft with your mind. Oh, my dear mind, you're so dear to me. Oh, I love you. No, when your mind goes off track, then you tell your mind, stop that. You may know Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, in the morning you should beat your mind 100 times with a shoe, and at night 100 times with a stick. It could have been the other way round, but yeah, stick, shoe, morning and night. Yeah, it doesn't mean you physically hit yourself, but it does mean that you tell your mind, you stop that when your mind goes off track. I see how a senior devotee hurts other devotees. I feel disturbance in my heart, and offensive thoughts appear in my mind towards the senior devotee. It's understandable. What to do with such an offensive mood? Well, okay. First of all, to help the whole situation, the devotees who are being hurt, the senior devotee who's hurting them, and you who are feeling sort of angry about it, what to do about the whole situation is, if you can't approach the senior devotee who's hurting the others, then inform some even more senior devotee. Yeah. And appeal to them. And because they're more senior, then they may be able to speak to that other devotee who's junior to them but more senior than you. Follow the idea. Yeah. In Krishna consciousness, in ISKCON, we do teamwork. It is not a one-man show. Do it yourself. We are a big team in Prabhupada's service. So if I can't do it, you help me. And if you can't do it, I help you. We work together like this. So if I'm too junior to step in and tell someone that, please stop doing like that, if I'm too junior, I go to a more senior devotee and they can step in like this. Yeah. Otherwise, if it was just, if we were on our own, it would be too difficult. Too difficult. So those were there's some sort of sub-questions. What to do if the insult is already done? Well, the same thing. And how to fix it? Well, we've answered that, haven't we? Yeah. At least I think it's a fair answer. So those were the questions from Instagram. Now questions from Facebook. When anger comes to some devotee, you said we should not express it in words. But what to do if this anger stays long in the heart? Well, it's not exactly what I said, but anyway, yeah, we should try to control our tongues and our minds. And stop ourselves from becoming particularly actively offensive. I mean, outwardly offensive. But yeah, if the anger or disturbance stays in the mind, then, well, it does, in such a case, it does depend on the circumstances, really. One couldn't say exactly just do one thing and that's how you deal with such a situation. But one, maybe a couple of things I can suggest one is that find some verses which discuss anger and how dangerous anger is. I'll make a suggestion. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 62 and 63. It's actually dealing with the subject of lust. But from lust, Krishna says, anger arises. And then from anger, various other things. And then Krishna says, then you fall down again into material life. And we read recently, I forget actually when it was, that there's a verse in the Bhagavatam that anger is worse than lust, because anger makes you a source of dread for others. It sort of horrifies others, and they start seeing you as some sort of, very, very difficult and painful person. Yeah. So that's one thing. You can look up some verses to try and become convinced that, wow, this anger is, I shouldn't remain attached to anger. A second thing, and even more important, it's more foundational, what is holding everything together in your Krishna consciousness, is to increase your chanting and increase the quality of your chanting, and really try to submerge yourself in the chanting. Yeah, because ultimately that is the medicine. Yeah, that is the medicine. Right, okay, now here's an interesting question. Can initiated devotees from the Gaudiya Mat Sampradaya do service in our ISKCON temples? Are they allowed to cook, do deity worship, etc.? Well, I couldn't give just a totally absolute yes or no to that, but I would say, first thing I'd say is that generally it would not happen, because generally we should engage our devotees, means our ISKCON devotees. If we're really short of devotees, then at least sort of general service like cleaning and fixing stuff maybe. Well, anyone can do that. Even a non-devotee, we can just get someone to come in and, as a cleaner. But when it comes to things like worshipping the deities, then it would be very unlikely that we could allow devotees from the Gaudiya Mat or other organizations to do that, because generally they have lower standards. Generally they don't chant 16 rounds, for example. Often they don't follow all the regulative principles. And often or generally, whatever, they don't have, they may appreciate Prabhupada, but they don't have the attitude like an ISKCON devotee has towards Prabhupada. So, but unless they join us here and there in ISKCON, including, I know where this devotee is from who's asked the question, including that place, there is a devotee or family. They have basically joined ISKCON. In Vrindavan, there are one or two devotees. They have joined ISKCON and they worship Prabhupada. They accept him as sort of supreme authority and they follow the principles. Then we do allow them to do some service even on the altar, but they must keep the picture of Prabhupada on the altar if they've really accepted him like Siksha Guru. So I think that addresses that. Let's see. Okay, today in South Africa, I don't know about anywhere else, but today is the appearance day of Gadadha from the Panchatattva. We could have a whole program just dedicated to Gadadha, but we don't have time at all because we've still got quite a number of questions. But let me tell you just one little pastime of Gadadha. Let's see. Gadadha one time Gadadha was approached by a devotee, Mukunda. You may have heard of him. He's a very famous associate of Lord Chaitanya and amazing singer. And he told them that, look, one great devotee has come. His name is Pundarik Vidyanidhi. He's arrived in Navadweep. They were in Navadweep. I want you to meet him. So they went to meet Pundarik Vidyanidhi. And when they arrived, they saw Pundarik Vidyanidhi lying on a luxurious sort of divanchik or sofa, on a luxurious sofa, being fanned by beautiful girls wearing super opulent clothes and jewelry, with one girl dropping grapes into his mouth, and he would catch them in his mouth. And Gadadha Pandit saw this and he thought, what? You told me he's a great devotee. What is this? He's just a big enjoyer. He's a materialist. Mukunda saw the doubt in Gadadha's face, and so he told him, just watch this. So then he recited Srimad Bhagavatam 3:2-23. Aho bhakiyam stanakala kutam jighamshaya payayad apyasadvi. Oh my dear, alas, alas, now Krishna has left this world. How will I find someone who can be merciful to me like he was? Because he delivered Putana. So merciful. So Mukunda recited that verse, and suddenly Pundarik, lying there on the sofa, suddenly he became like electrified. Yeah. And suddenly he flung himself off the sofa onto the ground. And he started screaming and screaming, "Krishna, Krishna, save me, Krishna. Where are you, Krishna? Help me, Krishna." As he rolled around the room, smashing things. And this went on. Actually, I forget exactly the period of time, but it was more than 1 hour. Just rolling and screaming and just, "Krishna, Krishna." And Gadadhar Pandit realized, whoops, I have judged this person really wrongly. Actually, he's not a materialistic person. He's a very great devotee. So you know what Gadadhar did? It's very interesting. Gadadhar, to make up for that offense, mental offense, Gadadhar decided, I must accept him as my spiritual master and be initiated by him. And he did. That's what happened. He was perhaps the only disciple, if not the only, one of very few, of Pundarik Vijayanidhi. Yeah, Gadadhar Pandit. And it's interesting, Pundarik Vijayanidhi in Krishna Leela is Maharaj Vrishabhanu, the father of Srimati Radharani, and Gadadhar is Srimati Radharani. Aha! Some transcendental connection has been, revived or put into action. So that, I think, that's about all we've got time for this evening on Gadadhar Pandit. So please don't mind. Yeah, definitely I've got to carry on. Okay. So it's a bit of a lengthy question, but he says, or she says, that it seems we mostly use our senses, including our mind, to do our thinking. Well, I think we use our mind more to do our thinking, I think. So how do we use our intelligence, our consciousness of our real selves, to think of Krishna and to serve him? Yes, well, that's an important point, and maybe we haven't addressed it just recently, but what we should do, we have to accept the identity. This is not just the mind. It is not even just the intelligence, but it is the ego, the sense of who I am, identity, most fundamental conception of who I am. That I am a spirit soul, eternal servant of Krishna. That's who I am. And if we accept that strongly and reinforce it with good chanting, then very quickly you'll find you're using your intelligence in devotional service to get things done as nicely as possible. And your intelligence is directing your mind. Think of this and that. And then through the mind directing the senses, carry out this activity. Do that. So this is the thing. There has to be, at the very deepest level of our existence, the sense of I am. Identity. There has to be an acceptance that I am the eternal servant of Krishna. And then our life has to go on, and we have to keep reminding ourselves, keep that perspective on things. How do we know that the obstacles coming in our life are from karma from our past life or from our offenses? Well, does it matter? It doesn't matter so much. If it's offenses and you're a little intelligent, you'll understand, Oh, this came because of my offense. Yeah. But otherwise, in the more general sense, it doesn't really matter. You know, Prabhupada said that when you surrender to Krishna, when you become a devotee, Krishna takes all your karma from the past. And now it's gone. But then from time to time, when Krishna wants to teach you a lesson, he sends you a bit of your own karma just to wake you up. Oh, some little bit bracing experience. So, you know, you can say it's your karma. That's okay. But actually it's Krishna's mercy. He is utilizing things to help you progress. If you make an offense to someone unintentionally or even unknowingly, does it have the same results? No, it doesn't. Definitely doesn't. The mad elephant is the term is used in regard to a deliberate offense, like malicious, deliberate, bad activity, aggressive activity. What's the difference between karma yoga, ghani yoga, and bhakti yoga? Okay, well, karma yoga means you do your duty and you give, after you've taken enough for yourself, you give the rest to God. Jnana yoga means you try to understand God, to connect with God through knowledge. And bhakti yoga means that you do whatever Krishna wants you to do in a mood of love and affection and appreciation. Here's an interesting question. To chant without offenses, you must avoid offenses. How did Ajamil chant the name of Narayan without offenses if he was such a sinner? Well, that's an excellent question. So that's explained if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, chapter 2. At the end, Srila Prabhupada gives a summary of certain aspects of the Ajamil pastime based on Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's comments. And the main point he makes is that because Ajamil was doing all those wrong things, not understanding that it's offensive to the Lord to do those things, therefore it wasn't really considered offense. Therefore his chanting was not offensive. It was namabas chanting, which can deliver a person, even give a person liberation, we read the other day, yesterday perhaps, or the day before. Yeah, so because there was no intention, therefore, to offend the Lord or the devotees, therefore there was no aparad as such. That's an interesting point, isn't it? How to increase my devotional service? Well, free up some time, go and ask the temple authorities and beg them, please give me service. Also, chant Hare Krishna better, because Hare Krishna means, my dear Krishna, my dear Radharani, please engage me in your service. So like this, you can increase your devotional service, but you could use some more time. Sometimes when I'm reading Prabhupada's books, I don't understand some things. How can I understand? Good question. Well, you know, in principle, it's a simple point. If there's something you don't understand, ask someone who does. Yeah. That's a simple answer, but it's a very good answer. You know, you could, for example, if you have Prabhupada's books on computer, you could do some searching through Prabhupada's books. But probably the quickest and easiest way would be to ask the spiritual master, or although that might not be so easy logistically, but to ask a senior devotee. And then you're practically sure to get clarification on the points that you don't understand. So when you come across a point you don't understand, write it down. Write it down. And you can collect a few, and then after a little while, approach a senior devotee. Right. What's the balance between not identifying with the body philosophically, but then identifying with the body for health purposes and for being a responsible citizen, like what we're doing in the lockdown, or like being a householder? So the balance is that it's not my body, it's Krishna's. He loaned it to me. And when someone loans something to you, you don't want to return it in some sort of, broken down state. You got to look after it. So therefore, in terms of health, we have to look after Krishna's body. And, of course, not become enamored by it and become some sort of super health freak, but at least in a responsible way, see the body as working as nicely as possible. And look after your family's bodies also, because they're Krishna's bodies. And Krishna has sent your family to you. He's chosen you. Please look after these devotees on my behalf, if you're the head of the family, or a mother with the children also. Krishna has sent the children to you. Please look after these children on my behalf. So like this, then you won't be identifying with the body in the ordinary material terms. So here's an interesting question. Some devotees in the community feel that things like Harinam in the streets should still go on during the lockdown, quarantine, whatever you call it, because they think, well, death, it's going to come sooner or later, but we should just depend on Krishna and serve him. Well, we found this quote from Prabhupada, which addresses this, I think. Please listen carefully. Prabhupada says, so long as you are in the material world, you cannot neglect physical laws. Suppose you go to a jungle and there is a tiger. It is known that it will attack you. So why should you voluntarily go and be attacked? It is not that a devotee should take physical risk so long as he has a physical body. It is not a challenge to the physical laws. I have become a devotee. I challenge everything. That is foolishness. Yeah. So therefore, generally our devotees around the world, the vast majority, they're accepting the limitations that are there due to this situation. On one hand, we don't want to appear to the governments of the different countries that we don't care. We are irresponsible citizens. We think we are above the law. To hell with the law. We don't want to come across like that. And on the other hand, why take the risk? So many people are dying because they're having contact. If we can just wait a while, then, hopefully the risk will decrease greatly. And then it'll be more or less back to usual. Okay, we got a few more. Let's see how many more. Oh, we got a few more. Questions. Is there such a thing as mechanical, attentive chanting? If one doesn't have feelings of dependence, gratitude, etc. Well, it's possible. But attentive, mechanical chanting is better than inattentive, mechanical chanting, which in turn is better than no chanting. So, we encourage the devotees to remind yourselves every now and then that, I should be chanting in a certain mood, like a child crying out for the mother, for example. You don't want to just get mental, so you're thinking and thinking, but you don't hear the mantra. The main thing is to hear the mantra, but from time to time, you should remind yourself. And then your mechanical, attentive chanting, hopefully, will become attentive and of a better quality chanting. Does the act of bringing the mind back to the chanting require devotion, or can it be done mechanically? Just, you know what Rupa Goswami said? Yena kena prakarena mana Krishna naveshayet. In this way, or in that way, but in some way, always think of Krishna, whatever it takes. Let's see. If one doesn't agree with the attitude of a devotee or even their actions, should one leave them or address the action, address the situation? Well, it would really depend. If it's just something, not very important, like something just not very important, better just ignore it. But if it's something really important in Krishna consciousness, then you should try to address it. But going back to what we said just half an hour ago, if you are junior to that person who, is disturbing you in whatever way, then as a general rule, unless it's an emergency, it's got to be done now. Unless it's like that, better to refer it to someone more senior. If it's someone junior, then, and it's important, then in a very kind way, parental type of way, not the boss type of way, try to address it and help them so that they feel, after you've spoken them, they feel that, that nice devotee helped me. Not like that aggressive devotee criticized me. How do we develop the 26 qualities of a devotee? Do we strive for it, or is it a spontaneous process? Well, like many things in Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, you got to apply yourself. So I would suggest, and I do suggest too, I've suggested many times, memorize these qualities. And when you're watching the devotees, sometimes, try to see what qualities the devotees are exhibiting, because they do exhibit the qualities regularly. And then along with your chanting, it'll become more natural to do that. So Purushottam Prabhu, a question about him. He left the movement because he didn't agree with many things. Was it because of his offenses towards Prabhupada that he fell? or that Krishna just got him away from the bhakti process. There was a fundamental kind of offensive attitude there of non-acceptance of Prabhupada, personally. Yeah. And that accumulated. And in a situation like the one we mentioned the other day, then, he didn't leave immediately, but it was not long after. That was just like, whoa, a bit of an explosion in the head for him. So I would say it was his offenses towards Prabhupada mainly. And then, because of offenses, his attraction to material life grew, and off he went. What would be his future? Well, after some time, maybe next life, but after some time. I mean, he hasn't come back yet. We know that. So, and he must be an old man by now. He's probably well into his 70s. But at least in his next life, Krishna will not forget him. He'll get another chance. If you don't criticize a senior devotee, but you simply don't accept their authority because you can't trust them and open your heart to them because of some difference of character, is that an offense? Well, you've introduced a few different considerations there. It's not just like one simple question. You don't have to open your heart to someone to accept their authority. Open your heart, that's something special. That's something deep. And you need a special person for that. But authority, official authority, president of the temple, some department manager like that, they're authorities. And if you are serving in that temple or department and they say, can you please do this? You should do it. So but you don't have to open your heart to them. And even if you don't really trust them, in general, if they're your authority, you should do what they say. Otherwise, it'll end up being an offense. How to get rid of offenses and their consequences which you didn't even know you did. Well, you know what Prabhupada said? He was asked exactly that question by one devotee. That, up until a few days ago, devotee said, I didn't even know there was such a thing as the 10 offenses. I didn't know they existed. But now I know. And I know I've committed some of them in the past. And I'm sure I've committed others that I can't remember. But what to do? It's already done. Are the results just going to come and attack me? And you know what Prabhupada said? Prabhupada said, what you should do is, every morning after Mangalarti, chant the Vaishnav pranams. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. And that will, if you do it sincerely from the heart, that will free you from those old, unknown offenses. Here's an interesting question. How to perceive and relate towards senior devotees who have fallen or are behaving incorrectly. Then you say, when the situation doesn't concern you personally, but your mind wants to pay attention to fault. Well, it's not just a matter of this last little bit I said, but how to perceive and relate towards senior devotees who have fallen. I could tell you an important thing. You could look up on the internet, perhaps. I have a copy on my computer. Shiva Ram Swami discusses this very subject in some depth. It's very interesting. You didn't plug in the thing. It's very interesting. Our Instagram telephone is about to bite the dust. Okay, it's back. It's come back to life. Okay, yeah. So the thing is, if they're senior, well, when we were discussing Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttama, there was a class of devotee who they're devotees, but they have serious problems. So you don't offer them obeisances, but you offer respect within the mind, because at least they're devotees, something to do with devotees. So that's what you should do in such a case. Be nice as much as you can, but you don't have to treat them like, the senior leaders or just the senior devotees who are properly situated in Krishna consciousness, who you may offer obeisances to regularly and inquire from and take guidance from. Yeah. Okay, this, I think it appears it is the last question. Here we go. How to understand the phrase, what Krishna says. It's Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 40. There is no loss on the spiritual way. Well, you know what Krishna, Lord Krishna actually says there. Let me just read the verse. It's Bhagavad Gita, it's chapter 2, and it is verse 40, and here it is right now. Actually, I know it, but anyway. Neha bikramanashosti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpamapyasya dharmasya trayate mahato bayat. In this endeavor there's no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear, which is to take an animal birth. So, okay, and in the purport, frankly, I don't know who you are who asked the question, but why don't you read? You can read the verse, Bhagavad Gita chapter 2 verse 40. I don't have time to go into detail about it, but the point that Prabhupada explains in the purport of 240 is that because devotional service is spiritual, not material, then the result of it stays. When you do good or bad, any material activity, the result, the karma, goes. Your karma comes, and either you enjoy something if you did something good, or you suffer something if you did something bad, and then it's gone. But the results of your spiritual activities stay. If someone gets deviated, though, from Krishna consciousness, not that the results of their Krishna conscious activities just go, but they become covered. And later they come out again by Krishna's mercy. Yeah, so, but all the results of what you've done in your Krishna consciousness, well, Krishna says, there's no loss. None of it is lost. Or diminution is a bit of an unusual word. There's no reduction. It all stays. So, even if you do get sidetracked from Krishna consciousness and you leave and get into material life, but later by Krishna's arrangement, you'll be able to come back again. And when you come back, you will start from the same place, more or less, that you stopped at when you left Krishna consciousness before. Or, if you just don't become perfect in Krishna consciousness and the time of death comes, but you're not ready to go back to Godhead, in your next life, you will start off again in devotional service from the point you were at when you passed away. So that's the idea. Oh, okay, and final little bit. Can our bhakti, or whatever it is, something liana, I don't know what's liana, can it be destroyed by offenses? Not exactly, but the same bhakti which is there sort of permanently, it can be very heavily covered by offenses. It can be, if you fall down, you just go away, but you're not really offensive, then there's some covering. But if you're really offensive, then there's a heavy covering, and it'll take time before you can come back to devotional service again. So there you go, devotees. Hare Krishna. Tomorrow we'll start verse 7. So for the time being, though, thank you all very much for your attention. Thank you very much, and Srila Prabhupada ki jai.